days left for Informational Reports. Today we're going to focus on making a strong, memorable conclusion. The conclusion of our report is very important because it's the very last words that our reader will read. It's what they will remember most about our report. Follow along as I read this report about Bill Gates and pay special attention to how the author words their conclusion. Bill Gates. Have you ever wondered if the things that interest you right now as a kid could later develop into ideas that make you a billionaire? That's how it all started for Bill Gates, the builder of the world's largest software business, Microsoft. As a child, Bill Gates was an excellent reader and would spend hours reading books like the encyclopedia. He had a competitive nature and enjoyed playing board games with his family and friends. Bill began showing an interest in computers when he was about 13 years old. His parents enrolled him at an exclusive preparatory school called Lakeside. When Bill was growing up, schools didn't have computers like today. Using money they raised from a fundraiser, Lakeside bought time on a computer for their students to use. Bill really enjoyed his time on the computer and wrote a tic-tac-toe program that allowed users to play on the computer. At Lakeside, Bill befriended a man by the name of Paul Allen. Bill and Paul had many things in common, but the biggest being their love for computer programming. At the age of 15, Bill and Paul went into business with one another, developing Trafodata, a computer program that would monitor Seattle's traffic patterns. They were paid $20,000 for this program. After graduating from Lakeside, the boys wanted to open their own business together, but went their separate ways attending different colleges. However, they stayed in touch and later began working together again on a software program that would run the Altair 8800, a mini computer kit. The program was a big success, and the duo was hired to work together for the company. In 1975, Bill and Paul came together to form a company called Microsoft, blending the words microcomputer and software. A little later, they changed the company name to Microsoft and moved to Washington. In 1980, IBM, a hugely popular technology company, asked Microsoft to write software to run the personal computers that they sold. Bill and Paul made a deal with IBM where they would make money off each computer IBM sold using their software. Later, they sold their software to all computer companies that sold personal computers. These deals helped Microsoft grow from 25 employees in 1978 to over 90,000 employees today. Microsoft has continued to make popular software programs that we use today, like PowerPoint and Word. Bill's continued success has made him one of the richest men in the world, with $61 billion in assets. Clearly, with hard work, determination, innovation, and a special interest, success can be well within your reach. Bill Gates worked hard in school and started his own business while still in his teens. Before long, he had built the largest software business in the world. What will Bill Gates do next? So let's look specifically at the conclusion and see what we notice. So it starts out with the word clearly. So I'm starting out with a transition. And then it kind of goes back over what it was that they talked about in the previous paragraphs. How hard he had to work, the determination, that he was interested in computers, working hard in school, becoming successful. And so it's kind of reiterating all of the subtopics that they had about Bill Gates. And then when it ends, they used a question, what will Bill Gates do next? Because this kind of keeps you wondering and interested in the topic that they shared. You might be inspired after hearing this to go look up about Bill Gates and try to figure out what is it that he's doing. If we look back at some of the other conclusions that we've read, so this is about Mount Everest. it kind of does the same thing. Mount Everest is not just amazing in size, so they talked about how big it is, but it's also a huge accomplishment for the many who've succeeded the difficult challenge in climbing to its top. So they're talking about the hiking. There's no arguing whether seeing this natural wonder from the bottom or top, it's truly extraordinary. So they didn't really end with a question like they did here. What will Bill Gates do next? But they are still kind of ending on an inspirational point. It's truly extraordinary, still kind of keeps you interested in this topic. This was our informational report about manatees. As you can see, so I'm noticing a transitional phrase at the beginning. The manatee is a very interesting animal of the sea because they shared a lot of interesting information. There are many other fascinating facts to be explored. Next time you're in Florida, stop by a state park to view them. So again, they're trying to get you more interested in the topic, and they're ending with something that kind of prompts further exploration into what they just taught you about. Here's our report about Joe Burrow. And if we look at our conclusion, we've got that same transitional phrase. This is not the only transitional phrase you can use in a conclusion. It's just a common one because remember we had clearly. As you can see, it took lots of time and patience to make Burrow's dreams come true. He never gave up on his desire to be a professional athlete. And again, because we went through and we talked about how hard he worked from the time he was a child and how patient he had to be. It took him a while. He went to 2 different colleges. So they're referencing back to those subtopics. And then one more. This was our informational report about Jamaica. Remember, it talked about weather, sports, music. And then they talk in their conclusion, Jamaica is known for more than its sandy beaches and its beautiful blue sea, because those are what they reference. So they reference the other things it's known for, weather, sports, music. With the reasons listed above, you can see that Jamaica has plenty more in store for people who call it home, as well as the people who come to visit. So again, kind of leaving the reader wanting a little more. Maybe they might be interested in visiting Jamaica themselves or just researching to learn more about Jamaica. So to summarize some of the things I noticed in conclusions, they had transitional phrases, they repeated the main ideas, and they're memorable. I'm going to record my observations on a chart so I can reference it when I revise my own conclusion. Okay, so I'm going to fill in my chart just so I have some reminders about what I need to include in my conclusion. We want to use some kind of transitional phrase. It could be something like, as you can see, which we saw frequently, clearly, which we saw as well. In summary and conclusion, I'm going to write some of them down. And remember, these are just some examples of transitional phrases you might have in a conclusion. We also want to go back and repeat the main ideas from the subtopics, all of those different points that we made. And then we end with, it could be a question, it could be a quote, if maybe it was a person or something. It could be something that prompts the reader to investigate more. So something that kind of inspires them. And then our conclusion might be similar to our introduction, because remember, our introduction introduces the reader to the topic. It tells them what our whole report's going to be about. And then the conclusion's wrapping it back up. So they might look pretty similar, except for that you would have maybe one of these transitional phrases letting the reader know it's over now. Now it's your turn. Use the ideas on the chart to revise your conclusion as needed. Tomorrow we're going to edit our rough drafts and get them ready for our final step of publishing. Okay, so I have my rough draft and I have my notes about my conclusion. So I'm going to look at my conclusion. As you can see, Cleopatra's life and time as pharaoh were very interesting, which is why she's still remembered today. So it looks like I'm off to a good start. When I added transitions in yesterday, I added a transition at the beginning of my conclusion. I've kind of mentioned my different subtopics. Time is Pharaoh. She's still remembered today. I might change this to make it reference more back to her childhood because my first paragraph is about her childhood. And then I might want to add something to kind of end it out to make it a little bit more exciting for the reader to want to keep learning about Cleopatra. And if we look at my conclusion and my introduction, they are pretty similar. Cleopatra was Queen of Egypt over 2,000 years ago. She had an interesting childhood before becoming pharaoh and is still remembered today. And then my conclusion, as you can see, Cleopatra's life and time as pharaoh were very interesting, which is why she's still remembered today. And remember, that's fine that they are similar because this is introducing my information and this is wrapping up the information. So I'm going to take some time now and make a couple quick changes to my conclusion. So I made a couple edits and additions to my conclusion. As you can see, Cleopatra's childhood and time as pharaoh were very interesting, which is why she's still remembered today. So that part is kind of the same. It hits my subtopic ideas, and then I added a final sentence with a quote in it. So I found a quote from Cleopatra. As Cleopatra said, "I will not be triumphed over. True to her word, not even history can beat her." And that's it. Now I'm just going to put this someplace safe so I will be ready to do my editing tomorrow. I'll see everyone tomorrow.